Hey, well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of ValueCast. It's a episode that we'll be talking about the passion and motivation of people to deliver extended workforce services. Um, Throughout the series, we're going to be looking at other topics that are related to specifically to services, but today's focus really is on the people side of things. So I'd like to welcome Milena. Milena, hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Thanks. Happy to join here today for this podcast, and thank you for thinking about me on this topic, which I'm really into it. Let's say.
Yeah, definitely. I first noticed it. All these amazing posts you're putting on LinkedIn about how your team and the passion of your team is so important to you. But before we get into it, maybe give us a quick overview of your history within work and what you're doing at Philip Morris right now.
Okay, so well, my career has been quite an interesting journey. I'm originally from Costa Rica. I started my career as an engineer, so I was sort of how intrigued with the science behind things, and I worked in manufacturing for about 7 years. And then I realized like this wasn't entirely my field, and so I moved to procurement, uh, still in Costa Rica. Then what I started to do is global category management for HR services.
Mhm.
And this is when an opportunity came up to move to London team on a company I was working for, and started to focus a little bit more on global category management still, but for talent acquisition and contingent workforce. And this is where I kind of reach what I'm like really passionate about now. I particularly on my latest role in PMI, I joined 2 years ago. Completely focused on contingent workforce and running the contingent workforce program. And yes, and this is this is where I guess the a lot of the challenges come up in terms of how to manage cross-functional team, because contingent workforce is something that does not pertain just one function. You
Right.
really have to bring together many functions and kind of raise that awareness and keep everyone engaged. So that's an interesting challenge that I really enjoyed the last couple of years in PMI.
Great. Yeah, I must admit my experiences over the years. It's a lot of people look at contingent workforce and think it's quite a simple process to manage, but actually, when you even from the point when you go out to find suppliers to support your business and trying to get buy-in from the business and different teams and functions to make them understand the value of what you're trying to do, even before you go out and try and sell it and actually bring in those functions, it's a real challenge, right? It's not easy. um,
Yeah.
but then what so within your role at Philip Morris, talk to us a little bit about the team, about some of um, the setup of the team, the challenges that you see, how you, I suppose, you came into Philip Morris, right, having to solve a problem. It's something that was maybe not being managed correctly before you came in, or just needed to enhance. So it'd be great to, yeah, just understand what you did with your team throughout that process.
So one very interesting thing is like there wasn't a a team completely dedicated or focused into contingent workforce. So we had to put together, as I said, like cross-functional team, but of or maybe what one of my colleagues call it as a garage band. So some people doing this on top of their day jobs or their regular jobs. So we put together talent acquisition, finance, and procurement, and and part of the work at the beginning is just really again like raising that awareness, sharing what are the risks, what is the relevance of contingent workforce in the company. And a lot of the work was really project based, but it was constant, and we were making sure to keep everyone highly involved, and even when there were small wins or quick wins, keep everyone engaged with those kind of things. When I joined, I noticed like there has been process within procurement to kind of um, rationalize the number of suppliers, and there was a little bit of fatigue, I would say, like after that process, because it's not easy. It's a big company, and the number of markets involved, etc. It's significant. So yes, there was a little bit of fatigue, and kind of everyone just thinking we were right where we were at that moment, and so yeah, it did have it was a challenge, really, to kind of get everyone on board again, to you know um, see that there was still a lot of work to do, and essentially we started working on some business cases because we needed to increase visibility. We needed definitely more resources into it, and we are now making that a move, or taking that next step to have now formally dedicated resources to look after contingent workforce, and also technology to have the right visibility into our contingent workforce as well. Not easy, but
No.
I would say, like, I, I've seen that more and more over time we've got more advocates joining the cause and understanding, like, the real challenges, or the risks and opportunities that we had in this category, let's say.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'd probably say one of the most hardest things working in the industry myself for quite a time is that cross matrix management where you don't actually have responsibility for the team. So although you're a team, you're not hierarchically a team. So
Yes.
what sort of strategies did you put in place to help manage it? I know you mentioned communication was quite critical, but were there other things that you did with this matrix style approach?
Yes, I mean, communication. Uh, I keep emphasizing, because it has to be very clear, and it has to be frequent, and it has
Hmm.
to be simple, because if everyone is doing this on top of their regular jobs, like, you need to be very clear and to the point, uh, but doing it frequently, so everyone stays engaged. um, I think I mentioned briefly before, like, celebrating quick wins, or every win, small
Yep.
ones, big ones, but all the efforts. So that's also very important. So everyone feels like it's really worth the the time it's being invested in this. Make sure everyone feels recognized and part of the success. Do little things, like, you celebrate, and if you are in the office together, like, that's also challenging now, because in the remote working
Definitely.
world. But if that happens, then celebrating with some cake and and coffee, let's say. Um, and making everyone also feel part, in the sense, like, okay, there are always lessons learned, so let's sit together, discuss what can be improved for the next phase, for the
Yep.
future. So yes, those are, I'd say, one of the biggest, or the best strategies that I think we leveraged on for our
Yeah.
program.
No, it makes sense. My experiences always come down to um, when you've got such a complex makeup and a complex team, you have to really understand each individual's real drive to want to be involved, right? Because you've got an IT stakeholder who's got specific visions about what they want from the program versus someone else, right? So it's a very challenging approach to be able to keep on top of. Did you find
Yeah.
that to keep people motivated and passionate about what you're doing? Did you have to deploy different strategies per teams, or were you lucky enough to be able to get everyone to follow the same approach? So, those things that you just mentioned.
I think that the devil is in detail. I think that's the expression, if I
Yep.
remember correctly. So we were socializing different with different functions. So you need to be aware of what is relevant for each of them.
Hmm.
Um, so that you can have them like properly on board with your project or yeah, or your initiative. So I have to make like different versions of my project briefs or the material I was sharing, just to be aligned with the functions priorities, let's say. um, that level of detail, again, like even, even silly things, I would say silly things, but I remember when we went live with a big project, I took the time to make like this big rocket and put everyone's picture, like everyone who was involved in the
Great.
rocket, and everyone remembers the rocket. It's like, oh yes, and you are like in the driving seats, and everyone, feeling, part of something, and showing that the impact. I think that's priceless. So I think, yeah, that's, I would say, that's big part of why this has been successful so far. Everyone sees the benefit for each of whatever they do in the company, and
Mhm.
also they see that they are part of it.
Yeah.
So you see how they are putting like their little addition to it to make it successful, let's say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's, it's giving that sense of purpose to everyone, right? And giving them a feeling that the work they're doing is meaningful. They're not just, a piece of the puzzle that doesn't matter. Everyone who's a part of that team needs to have a purpose. Maybe some people don't care about that, but overall, when you're managing a complex matrix based team, you all have to drive towards something, right? And I suppose in your case, there it's driving towards, go live one, go live two. We want new services to be introduced. We're bringing in a new managed service provider. So each challenge has that. And what about, so you actually, within your program, you work with a provider, right? So you have a provider that manages the services for you. Um, how do you find the motivation of that team versus the team, your internal teams? Like, do you find that you need to do a lot of work supporting those teams, or actually the provider you've got in place is is so good that you can just leave them to ensure they're doing the right job?
So this is another, I'll say, stakeholder, or
Uh huh.
important member, that it's also, I took an approach whether they would feel part of, like, of the big purpose, like you were saying.
Yep.
So one of the biggest projects we were doing is the technology implementation. So we made sure that our staffing partner was involved in the process, from RFP, from
Great.
evaluation, from the design workshops, and we have even, like, yeah, leverage some of the experts that they have in order to make this successful. And again, it's just like making everyone feel that they are part of something big, like everyone's contribution to it is important. So this the same with our partner here, like they truly felt, important, relevant for the
Right.
project, and they have also, whenever we have celebrated wins, they have been part of it as well. Whenever we have to present to leadership, when we go through big milestones, they are
Hmm.
part of this as well. So it's very important. They see as equals here, like we are sharing, the what we can contribute to the project together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense. Like I've obviously spent a lot of time on the provider side in my previous years. And I would definitely say that one of the biggest challenges I've faced is that when you're a provider and you don't get the encouragement from the client or the stakeholders to actually feel a part of the business, it makes your job twice as hard, doesn't it? It really, really, really does. And you tend to
Yes.
see more issues. Well, I tend to see more issues, today where clients aren't engaging their providers as if of course, they're not employees, right? But engaging them as a part of the team to keep that motivation and that passion really, really high. So that's really great that you do that. No wonder you've had a successful lifetime at Philip Morris. They're very critical things. You've probably got very happy providers too.
Yes, yes, we work very closely together. Really, it's just it's making everyone feel part of the team, regardless of being like external provider. At the end, we're in this together. So this is the way I see it. Like we will both benefit from the success of each other here. So it's that's how we see it. So it's a very healthy collaboration that we have, and yes, yes, it's just we both see what what's in it for us in this.
Yeah, definitely, and it helps you evolve the program, right? So if you've got um, you know, the thing I find is there's a lot of discussion at the moment about skills. Skills are very important, right? You must have the right providers in place. You must have the right internal people in to support the teams. But if those teams aren't motivated and passionate to deliver, it doesn't really matter so much about the level of skill that they've got because if they're demotivated, the passion
Yeah.
to actually succeed isn't there. So, in fact, having a highly motivated team and passionate team, which you do, actually thrives them to be better skilled and want more out of the program. And do you find that within your side? So you have a highly skilled team, but actually to support their development and their involvement within their roles, if you keep them highly motivated, it provides additional benefits to the business.
Yes, yes, and that's I guess part of the reasons we have are having this session together is because I I made recently a post about how being passionate can be contagious because we saw this, we've seen it. I think through the journey that I've been in PMI for 2 years. As I said, like coming from like absolute fatigue, people not really wanting to do anything on the contingent workforce space to actually people calling to me and say, hey, I want to hear more about that.
Right.
I have been challenged on this topic, and now I'm also like defending these. So I definitely think that it's contagious, and so it keeps spreading,
Correct.
and you start to get more promoters, even like for the projects and for the initiatives itself. And for us in PMI, I'm very happy because it got to the point where we said, yes, we've got this garage band, which is delivering, but we
Mhm.
actually do need more people dedicated into it. So it's come down to the fact that are now creating a new team dedicated to contingent workforce.
Yeah.
So even up to the leadership now, they've seen it like, yes. So it got contagious up to that way, I would say.
Great.
um, Big pressure now because everyone is really looking forward to see the outcomes. And but it got up to that point, the from where it started and where it is now, and that we will now have more fully dedicated team into this. I think it's amazing. So that's how big the impact it can have, really. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of.
No, and you should be. You should be. To be able to because many businesses don't really section contingent workforce as a department, right? And they don't really strategize. Not saying that's all companies, right? But it's still, although the services that are offered and the contingent workers have been around longer than we've been on this world. The fact is, it's never really seen as an internal function, or it should be managed by function, and then no one's taking accountability. So it's really great to see Philip Morris actually taking accountability for the fact that it's such an important part of the organization. So one of the things I was sort of getting through the theme of when you were talking there is about consistency, right? So it's like you've got all these strategies, but it's about being consistent in those strategies. And I suppose now that's where when you look at what you've done to where you've got to take it further, you've got a highly motivated team to deliver, but it's about delivering the consistency in what you've been doing over the years to then enhance it further. Do you how do you take a consistent approach to making sure your team are motivated? Like I know you mentioned all those things, but is there a specific method that you follow?
It's about frequent meetings, sharing our, yeah, as I said, our successes, but also other company successes as well. Like,
Great.
gives like some aspiration to,
Hmm.
okay, this is where we can get to. In our case, we are not. Our maturity is, I mean, it's not the highest. So we have shared like case studies, or even have had sessions with companies that are more mature, so that give us yeah, an aspiration or where we can get to.
Hmm.
um, and yes, just it's very frequent. Just keep the topic always on top of everyone's mind. So I have this other, I would say, another silly thing, but not so silly, that it's actually on the Fridays that I normally share some content, like similarly to what you do in social media, like 2 minute read thing
Hmm.
about important about the topic. It can be case studies, it can be new regulations, or anything, but that keeps continuing workforce on top of everyone's mind. Like,
Great.
this is something important. What we're doing is important, and then this is where we can get to if we keep on track with what we are doing. So that I think has been one of the key things. Of course, executive sponsorship. So
Yep.
for sure, we couldn't have gotten anywhere near where we are if we didn't have the right executive sponsors. So that's key. Like, definitely we cannot push this all alone. So we have really great leaders, executive leaders, pushing for this. So that's the other
Yeah.
one, very important.
No, that's good. Yeah, but like you said earlier, it's actually down to the fact that what you've done at Philip Morris as a team, and showing so much passion, and giving so much value to the business, it actually does engage those stakeholders, right? It's more the fact that the work you're doing enables those stakeholders to see the value of what you're doing, versus a program that maybe isn't well motivated or passionate about what they do. It's very easy to get caught up in, because running programs and understanding programs, you tend to get probably more issues come through than you do successes, right? And it's quite hard when you've got a large organization like yourselves that have hundreds of managers, and if something goes wrong, your team's then accountable for dealing with those things. Um, like, have you ever had experiences where that team that you deal with have had to take a lot of flack, but you've managed to keep them afloat because of the motivation and passion that you have? Like, is there an example that you might have, or has it always been great at Philip Morris and you've never had those sort of challenges?
No, there are many challenges, but I guess it's just about being honest, getting together, and see how we can take it forward. So it hasn't been easy. No, it's yeah, it sounds like it has, but it really hasn't. But it's just about being honest with the leadership, and where we need support, just ask for it, and work together to find a solution. But this is when a motivated team makes the difference, because you get more creative when you're having these kind of challenges, if you're feeling motivated about it. So thinking outside the box, and propose maybe untraditional solutions for these challenges.
Yeah, definitely. That not every member of the team is creative, right? But you've got to put the right structure in place to make sure that those people that can bring those ideas are so motivated that they get the opportunities to do so, versus people in the team that maybe want more stability, right? They're quite happy with the day-to-day duties and activities. So they're happy to let those people create, and they're happy to get on with the things to keep things running. So I think, you know, it's very important to make sure that, yeah, your team is so creative that it continues to change and evolve. Because if you don't, and there is no change, the business wonder what's going on, right? They sort of they're like, well, okay, well, what's actually happened? But it sounds like you've got a pretty solid system in place to keep the business up to date, and also it enables you to be creative at the same point. So out of all those things, right, you've mentioned a hell of a lot of things there, which I think has been very valuable, and I hope people listening find it valuable. If you were to just give one tip, right, if you were to give that one top priority thing out of all those lists that you said, what would be front of your mind for your, Friday morning checklist? What is it I need to make sure I'm doing to keep this team motivated? Or is there not one? It's a balance of all.
I think it all comes down to communication. What
Mhm.
I said. It's frequent. Is again recognition or celebrating. At the end, it's communication. So it really comes down to communication and making that sense of purpose. Um, Yes, and I think it's also good if possible because again, like remote working, it doesn't always make it possible, but it's good to have like some moments like outside of the context of work, just
Mhm.
to create some bond really together. Um, there are ways to do these remotely, but ideally, if it can be done face to face, I think that also creates the sense of group, of belonging, all of that.
Yeah.
But yes, I think honestly, eh, the success has been communication, really. It's just really, and at different levels with the team,
Mhm.
with the leadership. So there's a different type of communication with leadership. Um, and then with the different business functions impacted, as I said, because
Mhm.
then you have to, when you're socializing your projects, you need to be conscious of each of these functions and then refine the messaging. So
Okay.
yes.
Brilliant. No, and I think that was very clear, probably because it's one of the first things you said as well. But it's good to reflect back. I completely agree with you. Communication is paramount important, and but I think people underestimate what communication means. It's very much about the consistent approach that you take to communication. Otherwise, great that you can communicate, but if you're not doing it every Friday, as you said, in your socials, your understanding, it makes it difficult. Has there been one thing in your career that you've learned from about leadership and motivating a team? Maybe something you experienced that was quite bad, and you've taken that and then sort of made sure that in the future you've not you've used that as a this is my bad spot. Let's never do that. Let's make sure we focus on this. It sounds like maybe you might have experienced some challenges in communication in the past where things haven't gone well.
Mm, man, that's leaves me thinking.
Like for myself, just to give you a bit of time, probably one of the biggest things for myself is, I've been part of client programs which have been I thought had really, really solid communication. But then, I've experienced stakeholders, internal and external, make announcements and change without really properly communicating to people, and thus it impacts the team greatly. So I think one thing I've learned from that is, okay, let's put a proper plan in place to consistently communicate with people so these things don't happen again. Like, that, have you seen that happen in the past?
yes, maybe when making decisions without uh, all the people that might be impacted being part of that decision making, let's say. So because then you do not account, like there's no way you can know how whatever change or whatever new thing you are implementing may impact them. So important to involve as early as possible. I guess it comes down to change management a little bit.
Hmm.
It's crucial. I think change management doesn't get enough attention, and it's probably one of the most important things, especially for things around contingent workforce programs, because there's a huge impact in whatever when we're implementing and refreshing the program, new
Yeah.
technologies, etc. So it's yeah, I guess this is one of the key points, making sure that you take feedback from all the different impacted uh, areas and stakeholders before you actually go with anything live with anything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I agree. I agree. You've got, you need to have that realization that, Philip Morris is a huge organization globally. you've got all these end users that are utilizing your services. And if you don't go through that proper change management process properly, it's not just about the demotivation of your team. It's actually about the motivation of the whole business to make sure they're engaged in your platform. Because if they're not motivated themselves to pick up the phone and speak to, the delivery team who's managing it, or go into the technology and click the right buttons to request, the likelihood is they may go outside, right? And then it causes you scope creep, it causes you headcount creep that you can't report on. So, um, yeah, I think,
Yeah.
as we've gone through this, the communication element, which is in tune with change management,
Yeah.
has the greatest impact of motivation, but it also has probably the greatest impact for demotivating at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, because by default, no one likes changes.
no,
So how do we make it easier for everyone that is going to be impacted? It's a huge task on the project team, and yes, I guess I don't think anyone will ever get it like 100% right, but you keep learning as the as you
no.
go, as you move.
Especially when you're dealing with such a vast program covering pretty much every area of the business, right? Pretty much every area, has an element of external workforce involved in them. So, it's hard to counter for everyone, but you have to do your best to do it. And also, when it comes to change, people's motivations, not everyone is motivated by the same thing, right? So, those people who like stability, you throw change on them, suddenly their motivation dips greatly. You throw change
Yeah,
on someone who's creative, they're like, yes,
yeah,
wonderful, I love change, So that's what makes it quite complex, I think, in the whole motivational side of things.
yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much. I personally learnt a few things from you today. Um, one thing I did want to ask you though, we've talked a lot about, how you keep people motivated at Philip Morris and in your team and across all these matrix teams. But what about yourself? What keeps you motivated? What gets you up every day and puts that smile on your face that you have?
As crazy as it sounds, I love challenges. I
Mhm.
really do love it. So, when someone comes up and tells me you can't do it, or this is impossible, or a woman cannot do this, like that's fuel. Like that's fuel for me. Like I'm, breaking those paradigms. Like that's and that's why I guess like I have enjoyed doing changing careers through my career journey, because it's just that that challenge of stepping into a new field. uh I guess when I first chose to study chemical engineering, and like it's unexpected for women, so I saw it like as a good challenge as well. And so it's really about that challenges, and with the program, one of the things I got when I first proposed everything we're doing now, it's like, yeah, we tried that, it didn't work, so it was like, okay, I'm into it.
You're rubbing your hands, going, right. This
Yes,
is. I'm going to
yes,
show you. It can be done.
yes, that's yeah, fuel to me, really.
Great,
Challenges.
great. Well, and the odd. Was it a post I saw about you doing bungee jumping, or was it one of your colleagues?
It
I don't
was
know.
me,
It
it
was
was
you. I
me.
thought it was you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So plus some adrenaline rush to challenge yourself in your personal life as well. But that's a constant theme. Brilliant.
Yes, yes. I
I've
put
never done one.
a bungee jump. So I went
No.
to that was in New Zealand, in Queenstown. With I think it was the first place that or the place that invented the bungee jump, pretty
Oh
much.
right, didn't know that. No.
Yes, yes. So
You,
those
you
kind
might.
of things I really enjoy. Like, yeah, doing new adventures. Well, traveling. I love traveling, getting to know new cultures. I'm highly people oriented, so yes, anything that has to do with meeting new people, new places, new cultures, I love
Right.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be a swimmer for 14, 15 years, but you couldn't
Oh.
get me to jump off a 10-foot high dive board. No chance. No chance. So the fact you've done a bungee jump is just like I'm like starting to sweat, I think, just the thought of it. Uh, Brilliant. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know, personal things sometimes are difficult to share to the world, but I think it's valuable because it tells people why you've been so successful, right? You've come into this role, you came, as you said, with with a team that needed to change and a service that needed to change, and just look where you've got a couple of years later, and the future's looking very bright. So thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the chat yourself.
Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed. I love the topic. So thank you so much for considering me for this.